Good afternoon, welcome and thank you for joining our Sage Pay and Evosite webinar, focusing this month on tips for increasing conversions on your website. My name is Donna Dobson and I am one of your speakers today. So quickly taking you through our agenda, I'll cover a brief overview of e-commerce tips for online conversions and then hand you over to Peter Milcreast and Aaron Weeks from Evosite, who will discuss how you can convert your website traffic into revenue. We also want to get you involved in this webinar, so we'd love you to tweet your top picks, and as a little incentive, we'll give a £25 Amazon voucher to the best tweet pulled out of a hat. As always, here are your presenters for today. As just mentioned, I'll be kicking things off and then I'll hand over to Peter and Aaron from Evosite. So for those of you joining us for the first time, a quick piece about Sage Pay. We're part of Sage Group, a FTSE 100 company, and we're Europe's leading independent payment service provider. We process millions of secure payments for over 50,000 customers every year. We provide UK-based telephone support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and our vision is to make the process of accepting payments simpler, faster, safer, and more profitable for businesses of all sizes. So how do you go about increasing online conversions? Well, let's start with what is a conversion and conversion rates. Put simply, it's a number that indicates what percentage of your site visitors convert into paying customers, and Evosite will they'll cover this in a bit more detail in their presentation. But we regularly undertake research into the UK payments market, and from our 2013 report, we were able to estimate that a 1% increase in conversion rates is equivalent to a 16.6% increase in traffic volumes for small to medium businesses. So what does that mean? Well, if you're looking to increase the revenue you generate from your site, then it's cheaper, quicker and easier for you to convert more of those who are visiting your site, rather than having to look at ways of attracting more people to your site. Well, that's all well and good, but so what? Well, and again, from our 2013 report, we found that small businesses were only converting 6% of their visitors into customers, and large businesses were converting 35% of their visitors. So there's lots of room for improvement for both small and medium-sized businesses. So for today, or rather, looking back at how we go about increasing conversions, if we were to sum it up in one sentence, then it would be to make it as quick and easy for people to buy your goods, or as we like to say, make it frictionless. So for today, here are my 4 top tips for improving conversions. There are lots more, and Evosite will cover more in their presentation, and we'll also go into some of these in more detail. But for now, here are mine. Firstly, focus on your customers, not yourself. So make the buying process appeal to their preferences. You want to establish trust in your visitors. If someone doesn't trust you, then they're not going to hand over their hard-earned cash to you. Look to make the browsing purchase seamless by creating clear navigation paths. And look at reducing friction during the actual moment of payment. That can be a tenuous moment, so you want to make it quick and easy, and that way you're more likely to get paid. So looking at a slick checkout. So going into my first tip in a bit more detail, I'm going to ask you to put yourself in the shoes of the customer. We all purchase online today, so we all have good and bad experiences from which we can draw upon. On this slide, I've come up with a snapshot of questions to consider when creating your site. And really, you want to start with asking yourself the question, do you know who your customers are? Do you really know? Do you know where they're based, when they shop, what language they speak, how they like to shop, and the ways in which they prefer to pay. It's also worth thinking about copy and making sure the copy uses terms that's really reflected on them, so things like you, yours, rather than I, we, or us. And language, what about language? Well, if you have a large number of foreign visitors coming to your site, you don't want your readers struggling to understand what you're saying about your products and services. And if you have got a lot of foreign visitors, then why not let them pay in their own currency? And then payment types. It's worth considering payment types, and we will discuss this in a bit more detail later on. I also wanted to share with you another finding from, this one is from our 2014 payments report. In that report, we identified a successful business as one whose revenue growth was more than 21% over the previous year. So based on that figure, we found that over half of successful businesses measure what is happening on their sites and track where the dropouts occur. And we actually also looked at, so where do the dropouts occur? And as you can see, our results showed that the payment pages were the most likely place for shoppers to abandon the site without making a purchase. So when it comes to the buying experience, you want it to be as frictionless as possible. So you might want to consider the following. Remove superfluous steps when asking customers to fill out forms. Do you really need all the information you are asking of them? And we all make mistakes on forms, so you want to make it easy for people to go back and edit a single error. Something that a lot of people don't like to do is have to sign up prior to even putting in their details to make a purchase. So where possible, try not to force customers to sign up. Speeding up the form by offering postcode lookup can be really helpful. And it's good to be clear about shipping costs up front. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of the purchase and discovering a very unrealistic shipping charge has been added right at the end. And when it comes to shipping options, it's best to be straightforward. People either want it really fast or really cheap. So where possible, just don't overcomplicate things. I mentioned earlier about providing customers with their choice of payment methods rather than yours. And again, our research uncovered that 36% of shoppers said that they would be more likely to shop where there is a range of payment options. But interestingly, 80% of businesses said that they would adopt new payment methods if their customers requested them. But how are customers supposed to do this? Something you might want to think about is giving your customers the option to feed information back to you. Or it might even be worthwhile testing different payment options and then measuring their impact. Those were all parts of my first tip. So moving on to my second tip, again, I'm going to ask you to put yourself in the shoes of the customer and think about trust and loyalty. These aren't things that we easily give out. Trust has to be earned. And the challenge for smaller businesses is that it can be difficult to create brand recognition quickly and easily. So where possible, your site needs to reflect your brand and your values. And ultimately, you want to enable your visitors to form an idea of who you are, appreciate your business values, gain an understanding of what you're selling. You want to provide them with a positive experience of using your site. And you want to enable them to safely purchase goods from you. And some suggestions for how the above can be done. There can be some simple things like being consistent with fonts, colours, alignment and navigation. And then when you're starting to look at mobile optimization, that can be even more important in keeping consistency between your mobile site and your online normal standard PC site. Customers are reassured by consistency, so bear that in mind. Moving on to my third tip, this is around creating clear navigation on your site. Again, as online purchasers, we want to find the goods we're after and be able to pay for them quickly and easily. So my keyword here is minimal. Keep clicks and text minimal, and where possible, keep visitors on your site rather than taking them away onto a separate product information or payment pages. Allow visitors to navigate back to previous pages and enable them to make changes to their baskets with minimal fuss. Make the overall experience intuitive and try not to let visitors stop and think, because those are your potential dropout points. Ultimately, you want to keep visitors focused and moving from your home page to your payments page in as fewer clicks as possible. And so for my final tip today, it's around offering a single click checkout experience, which is all part of minimizing the buyer process. I've mentioned single click checkouts in previous webinars, but it is worth pulling out again. This is often referred to as tokenization, and tokenization provides a secure way of collecting, managing, and storing your customers' card details. The card data is encrypted and then transmitted as a series of unique random digits, and that's known as a token. When the customer pays, that token is sent to the merchant's payment processor, and the token is then matched to the original card number, and at that point the transaction can be authorized. That token, those details, can be securely saved, and that can allow for quicker repeat purchases, as the customer can then identify themselves quickly either with a unique password or a 3-digit identification number for when they come back to your site to make repeat purchases. There is another incentive for merchants considering tokenization, and that is that it can save you money off your PCI regulation costs. Again, through some of the research that we did, we found that with tokenization, most companies can be PCI compliant at a lower level. And there are costs associated with the 4 different levels of compliance. So small and medium businesses were saving around an average of £6,000 off those costs. So those are my 4 tips for improving conversion. I'm now going to hand you over to Peter and Aaron, who will take you through building and managing websites. So Peter, I've handed this over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So my name is Peter Milcreast from Evosite. Well, welcome. It's great to be here. And myself and Aaron Reeks will run through some slides. Some are reinforcing a lot of what Sage Pay have already demonstrated and have the statistics to prove. Evosite are a web development agency, full service agency based down in the West Country in the UK. We have several hundred happy clients, and we also have almost approaching 1,000 websites running off our current platform, the majority of which are a mix between e-commerce and brochure or catalog websites. Okay. If there are any questions, because this is a recording, please forward them to us at our Twitter account, which is @Evosite, and we will get back to you. Okay, for the next few minutes I'll talk to you about some common e-commerce mistakes. There's always those errors that we spot in our daily lives, whether it be professional or personal. We'll look at some statistics which have some information contained amongst them regarding cart abandonment. We'll also take a look at some key elements to improve your conversion rate, and then a couple of comments from Google which perhaps give us some guidance as to where we should be heading. Okay. Common e-commerce mistakes. As I said, most of us are familiar with these sorts of errors or shortcomings in the websites that we often visit. So if the website is not search engine friendly, then of course that's an issue. We're always trying to strive for that confidence level, the clarity and convenience of using that site. It's not convenient if the navigation is daunting. Certainly, a fussy registration and repeated data entry is frustrating. Off-site checkouts don't instill what Donna was describing as a level of trust or enhance any level of trust in the websites that you're visiting. If that lack of trust exists, then of course you might look to go elsewhere. Delivery details should be clear. We want to know how much and when and where the items will be delivered to. And template-driven shops, in our experience, do not assist clients with branding. And finally, if there are any search misspellings, if they're not handled correctly, and a good example of that may be just as simple as you're typing in the word boots and the website only recognizes the word boot, and if it doesn't give you an alternative or find what you're looking for, then you won't be able to buy it. So what happens if your website is poor? You lose customers, of course. If you think of it in the way that a high street store may be providing their services, if a customer walks in and you don't offer any assistance and you leave them to their own devices, then of course they will go elsewhere. Now, I thought we'd add these statistics to the presentation because I find them very interesting. Of all visitors to online stores, often 3/4 will abandon their cart basket or their bookings. Of those, half of them, if they receive an email to say they've abandoned their basket and offer a reminder, will open that email. Of those, 15% will click through that email, and 1/3 of those will go on to make a purchase a product. Now, if you think about that, then the final statistic, 58%, really, in theory, should say 158%, because it's possible that without that cart abandonment email, you wouldn't have sold any items at all. So that's quite a modest figure. But when you add that 100%, it's huge. Key elements to improving your conversion rate, well, of course, good product images serve you well. And if the information is there for people to find and easily read and it's searchable, then of course that really helps. A clean design which focuses on your products, obviously again, without any distractions, will also help. Make it easy for your visitors to navigate the website. If they can't find it, again, they can't buy the products or services. Clearly display prices and shipping information. If the information is required, and it certainly you can't give too much information on a website, but just make sure it's in a form and it leaves the visitor clearly able to find what they're looking for, then add that information. Provide that good search function. Make it easy for customers to contact you. Don't hide away. Again, the analogy with a high street store is that you're always there and can be found, and that raises the level of trust. Give some good response on page loading times. This can serve many, many different improvements, including if Google or any search engine is analyzing your website and finding, which of course it is, and then finding that the customer's having a great experience and getting great loading times, then your organic rankings may improve. And then finally, include a facility for some product feedback. There's nothing better on a website than reading other people's experiences with the services and products that you're providing. Simplify address input, for instance. Now, a good way of doing that, certainly in the UK, is to use maybe a product called Postcode Anywhere. There are others out there which populates the address fields for you, provided you enter a postcode, and it may just ask you the name of your house or number. Simplify the checkout procedure. Once a customer or visitor has made a selection, then don't make it difficult for them actually to make the purchase. Include wish lists. Wish lists can be shared. Wish lists can be used by the visitor to find those items that they preferred earlier and didn't have time to purchase. Offer them that guided selling. That's important. It's what you would do in a physical store. And we spoke about abandoned cart emails. Send those out at either a fixed period, or you can set that up within your website. Make it as easy as possible for people to find, review, select, and purchase your products. So that's what we've been describing. I think it's important at this point just to mention responsive design and eCommerce. Responsive design is the facility for the website to reconfigure its design to accommodate the different devices that the end user may be using. So the various devices could be a laptop or desktop, obviously a mobile phone, a smartphone, or of course then a tablet. Why tablet users are particularly important, they need that special attention. I've got some statistics here just for 3 business sectors, which you can see depend or respond differently to the different devices used, and the end result of combined mobile devices does differ between the gadgets and tech to a niche site with no mobile optimization experience at all. Quite interesting figures. Adobe, during 2012, conducted a global survey which also revealed that tablets versus smartphones, the use of these devices was increasing the tablet devices, and it actually overtook smartphone devices during 2012. 3 to 4 times higher sales are made via tablet devices, so please don't ignore them. What do Google say about responsive design? Well, they say responsive web design is recommended by Google. If you continue to read the rest of it, that's important, but of course, if Google says it's important, then of course your rankings will improve. And then finally, Google has a range of testing tools to evaluate the user experience on the website. So we mentioned faster page loading times earlier, and of course, if that experience is great, then Google will reward you. I'd like to now hand over to Aaron Reeks, who will present his presentation on analytics. Aaron.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Peter. So, as Peter said, I'm going to talk very briefly with you today regarding Google Analytics and the process of breaking down Conversion Rate Optimisation, or CRO, and how you can use tools such as Google Analytics to improve your conversion rate. So first and foremost, what is CRO, or Conversion Rate Optimisation? So when we're talking about conversion rate optimization, it's a process of analyzing your site, breaking down the good, maybe the bad parts of it, and working out where there's room for improvement on there. So a very interesting stat from eConsultancy found recently that for every $92 that's spent acquiring customers, only $1 single is actually spent in effort to convert those visitors to your site. So you may or may not have heard about conversion rate optimization before. Prior to kind of 2009, it was pretty unheard of, but since then it's starting to grow more and more. We've got a little screenshot there on the slide on the screen, just showing Google Trends over the period, and you can see that as time's gone on, it's become more and more important, and more marketers are starting to focus on conversion rate optimization these days. So the key areas we're going to look to discuss today are all going to revolve around Google Analytics. This isn't going to be too much of a basic guide to it, although we will cover some kind of general knowledge of the platform. But first and foremost, we're going to be looking at quick and easy ways that you can use tools such as Google Analytics to increase your conversion rate on your own websites. So first and foremost, what is Google Analytics? So it's a free tool that's provided by Google that gives you the power to integrate it with your website, so you can start collecting data straight away about how visitors are using your site. And then you can leverage that data to make real informed decisions about changes you want to make to your website in the future. If you haven't used it before, you can access Google Analytics at google.com/analytics, and it's completely free to sign up for. So there's a couple of terminologies that are just worth covering over before we jump too much into detail here. And the first one that we think is very important is obviously conversions. So every time we're referring to a conversion, it's a percentage metric that refers to the number of visitors who complete a goal on your website. So for example, if you had 100 visitors that came to your store and one of them made a purchase, your e-commerce conversion rate over the period you're looking at would be 1%. And secondly, bounce rate. So when we're referring to a bounce rate, again, this is another percentage metric, and that's the number of visitors who come to your site and then leave it straight away before performing any action on that. That means they haven't visited any other page, they haven't tracked anything that you just constitute as an event. They've literally just landed on your site, probably not found what they're looking for, and left straight away. So Google Analytics, why should you be using it? Well, first and foremost, it can answer some very, very key questions for you. A big one that we find day in, day out is, should we be looking to go mobile? Should we be looking to create an eCommerce or a responsive site like Peter was talking about just a moment ago? So very quickly through the reports that Google can provide, it can show you the exact split of traffic that's coming to your website, how people are using it, which devices are getting kind of better revenue for you. And through that, very quickly, you can make an informed decision as to, should you be looking at mobile sites, should you be looking at creating a responsive interface for your users, and you can make a really good business case for it from there. So how can you get Google Analytics if you haven't got it already? So most of the big platforms these days, they support it out of the box. So if you're using WordPress, Magento, Shopify, of course ourselves at Evosite, it's all completely included out of the box. And it's the same with almost every platform out there. In the off chance that it's not, you'll find that most platforms these days that don't have it allow some sort of a plug-in system or an add-on system, and you'll probably find other developers who created it for you. In the rare event that you haven't got a site that supports it and there's no ability to get it put in straight away, Google will give you a little bit of tracking code when you sign up for an account, which you can see in the right-hand side of the screen there. And it's literally just a case of copying and pasting the code they give you in. You don't need to have any technical knowledge. You just include that at the top of all your web pages, and it will start tracking straight away. So as a high-level overview, what kind of data can you get back out of Google Analytics? So you can get basic information, such as traffic and visitor stats, so who's coming to your site, what they're actually doing on there. You can look at the bounce rate, so as we talked about earlier, that's the percentage of people that are coming to your site and then performing kind of deeper interactions with your site, so navigating to other pages, performing events, and other such tasks. Breaking down the conversion rate, so looking at how many people are completing goals that you deem to be key across your website. Actual goal tracking itself. Perhaps the location that your visitors are coming from. So that's not just countries, that could also be the exact city or town that they're coming from. So you can pin down people that are really interested in your product if there's a select area perhaps that are more interested than others. You can get demographic reports. So this is something that's quite new that Google have recently introduced. So the demographics range from age groupings to gender and even interests that your customers may be interested in. The devices and technologies that they're using. So are they coming to you from a mobile device or a tablet? Are they on a desktop? What browsers they're using? Your website speed. Is your website quick? If it's not, then it's definitely something to be looked at there, and we'll cover off that a little bit more in just a moment. If you're using Google AdWords, you can get a bit deeper insight of your visitors that are coming from AdWords, which keywords are performing the best, and the transactions that come off the back of that. And then finally, just basic e-commerce data, so from transactions, your e-commerce conversion rate, the products that have been purchased, top categories, and other such e-commerce related data. So that's all brilliant, but how can you actually start using this data to start increasing your revenue? At the end of the day, that's what it's all about here. So the key bits we're going to focus on today are events, goals, your website speed, the process of experiments, which is split testing, and in-page analytics. So events. We're going to, first and foremost, we're going to cover over a few key events just to give you an idea of the sort of things we typically find are logged across sites, and certainly we log across our sites. There's far, far more that you can go into, and these can be far more granular than we're going to give examples of here. But I just think it's worth, before we dive into it too much, just to give you an idea of the typical kind of events that we like to see tracked across e-commerce sites. So if your typical e-commerce product detail page could be anything from add to cart action, which is obviously a very key one, perhaps a customer changing a variation, so choosing a different size or color for the item they're looking at, increasing the quantity or even decreasing the quantity that they're looking to purchase. On a product list page, it could be changing the filters, so they could be sorting by different prices, high to low, alphabetical, maybe filtering just for specific brands. And of course, the very important one, actually clicking through to product detail pages. In your checkout, there are some really key ones there. So that could be your registration form being submitted, or even tracking events when your registration form has picked up errors. If your delivery methods are being changed, you can try and work out if certain delivery methods equate to better conversions for your website. And certainly a common one we see is that, as you'd expect, free delivery does convert a lot better. Offering free delivery is always a great way to increase your conversion rate. Items being deleted from cart, saving to a wish list, removing from cart, or just changing the quantity either up or down. So one that's worth just covering off in more detail there from experience we've had very recently was tracking form submission errors through the checkout step. And I think it's really worth covering off just so you can get an idea of how small a detail that you may think insignificant actually can have quite a large impact on your site, its conversion rate, and obviously the revenue that you generate off the back of it. So we were tracking all form submission errors on our registration page, and we started to pretty quickly pick up a pattern that customers' email addresses very frequently had errors in them, and if they didn't have a correct email address, it meant they didn't get their order confirmation emails, and it ended up being more of a headache for the stores themselves. They weren't getting their tracking numbers when packages were dispatched, they didn't get confirmation emails, they didn't even know their order had potentially gone through, they hadn't read the actual order confirmation page on the website clearly, and it led to a lot of customer service issues where our clients were having to take phone calls from their customers to try and answer questions just because there was a typo in their email address. And a lot of these typos turned out to be the same thing, very repetitive. One of the most common ones was commas being used instead of full stops. So instead of .co.uk or .com, it was .com, and they're similar such scenarios. And from a development point of view, looking at that, it was a very easy fix to put in place. The customers never know they've made a typo, but we automatically correct them now. And as a result, the conversion rates have gone up from there. So goals, that's the next thing we're going to focus on. So a key goal, for example, could be breaking down someone going from viewing a product detail page to actually adding an item to their cart. At the end of the day, we all wish that we could purchase more. We want more people to add to cart. So it's a good goal to be focusing on to try and increase your conversion rate on add to cart items. Okay, page speed. So we mentioned very briefly about this earlier on. The scenario here is that we find that there is a big correlation between a slow loading web page and the speed at which visitors either leave your site or the conversion rate just generally drops off. So Tagman conducted a study recently and found that for every 1 second delay in page load, they ended up causing a 7% loss in customer conversions, which is a drastic scenario. And Google, off the back of such studies, have included reports within analytics that allow you to see all your pages, how fast they perform, so on a page-by-page level or as an overview of your entire site. And then if any pages are worse than others, they'll give you a breakdown through what they call page speed insights to tell you exactly which pages are worse than others perhaps, and give you some really useful insight into how you can correct those pages. It's really actionable data they give you there, and it's well worth focusing on. Next we come to experiments, so, or as content experiments that used to be called. So content experiments allow you to conduct split tests across your site. So with content experiments, you could set up two versions of a page. So it could be a product detail page with you testing a different layout, maybe just different wordings, add to cart buttons. And you can actually run them simultaneously side by side, and you can see which version works best for your customers. So the reasoning behind this is, yes, you could run two separate versions of your page and run them one after another. So you have a pretty good idea that the version you're putting out there for your customers is going to be better. So you just roll it out and you hope that it's going to be an improvement. The difficulty in tracking that is websites vary day to day. So one day you may have a massive influx of traffic, maybe a celebrity tweeted one of your products, and all of a sudden everyone comes on and the conversion rate on that product escalates drastically. If things like that happen, it makes it very hard to actually pin down if the changes you're making are having a positive or even a negative effect on your site. And the only way you can be truly certain is to conduct a split test. So that's allowing you to run both versions in parallel, and because of that you can see which ones perform the best. So a certain percentage of your traffic would view one version of your page, and the other half of your traffic over the same period would view the other side of the page. And then side by side you can see which one converts better over the exact same period. So it's a very, very useful feature within analytics there. And finally, we have in-page analytics. So a lot of people think this to be quite gimmicky, and it's because of that very often overlooked. But actually it can be a very, very valuable tool. So what it is it allows you to have your website annotated, your real live website annotated, to show you which links on your site are interacted with the most. So we've got an example here of one of our client sites, which is Online Power Tools. And what we're looking at here is it's a heat map showing the percentage as well of visitors that are clicking through on certain links. So we can see exactly which links are most important to customers, and from that in just a few seconds we could reorder our top navigation to make it more customer focused, and very often we find that that will help customers find what they're looking for faster, more efficiently, and as a result it can improve your conversion rate. And it's just worth mentioning that you can also break that down as well, not just by the percentage of visits, which is what we've got on this screenshot there, but you can also do it by the percentage of revenue that's been created through certain categories or just general links across your site. So unfortunately, that's all we've got time for on analytics today. We could talk for hours and hours about it, so we've just tried to pick out the very best things to help you all today. Google have done a brilliant job in creating free training courses through what they call the Analytics Academy, and that can be found at the link we've included on the slide there. We highly recommend it. It is great. It helps everyone from a very beginner level right the way through to people who have been using analytics for a long time to fully understand the platform and how you can leverage it to improve your websites. So we'd highly recommend checking out the Analytics Academy if you haven't already. So as Peter said earlier on, this is a recorded version we're doing at the moment. So if you do have any questions for anything regarding what you've seen in the presentation today or otherwise, just drop us a tweet to @Evosite and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Okay, so I'll hand back over to Donna now.
Thank you, Aaron. That's great. Right, okay, so just to finish off then, as Aaron and both Peter have said, if you have any questions from the from this webinar, then you can email us at the email address here, webinars@sagepay.com, and we will forward any that are relevant to Evosite onto Peter and Aaron. If you wish to call us, you can do. The phone number is there. And this webinar has been recorded, so will be available to everyone. So just with that, finally, I want to thank everyone again for attending today. If you've enjoyed today's webinar, then our next one is on the 16th of October, and that will be focusing on reducing fraud at Christmas. And that now ends today's webinar, so thank you again.